This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Paul Babb is the president and CEO of Maxon US, as well as a graphic software technology expert with more than a decade of experience in 3D animation, visual effects, and motion graphics. Recently, he's been thinking about how today's economy is improving hiring opportunities, especially in virtual reality. Hey, Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Larry, for having me.
So before we get into this whole discussion of hiring, give me a description of what Maxon makes.
Maxon, we develop a 3D animation product called Cinema 4D. And Cinema 4D enables artists to do anything from movie visual effects, of course, the most interesting part, broadcast graphics, scientific and medical animation, architecture or engineering visualization, on down to any kind of design, website design, DVD menus, corporate presentations, courtroom simulation. So many things.
Many things, but I'm sure there's sort of clusters within which your customers occur. Who are typical customers?
I'd say our biggest market, our biggest cluster of customers is in the motion graphics market.
Now, what makes Cinema 4D so helpful for that?
Well, ease of use. It's a very fast, easy program to pick up. It's very much geared towards graphic artists. Integration's a huge thing. We integrate extremely well with the Adobe suite of products, including there is a light version of our product actually built into After Effects.
I remember when you were getting ready to launch that, there was small level of stress putting that together.
And a little excitement too. We also integrate extremely well with Photoshop. Photoshop files can be used for a multitude of things, textures. They can
now,
be
when you say
extracted.
Integrate, what does that mean?
It means that the process and during the workflow is a very smooth transition. So bringing in an Illustrator file into Cinema 4D to create 3D geometry from, say, a 2D graphic is very quick and easy. Just open it up.
So if I'm using Illustrator and I'm creating a corporate logo, I would take that Illustrator file and then you could extrude it into 3D space?
As a matter of fact, you could extrude the layers separately, put different colors on the layers, animate those layers separately. It's all built in.
Are people principally using it to create still 3D objects, or are they using it to create motion?
Motion graphics.
And now I know that there's other packages out there. Maya comes first to mind from Autodesk. Why would somebody consider Cinema 4D?
I think ease of use and workflow integration with other packages. And, ease of use, I think, is one of the biggest things. I really do. I think ease of use is a huge obstacle.
Wait a minute. I have opened Cinema 4D.
Okay.
I've seen all 755,000 million options. How am I supposed to learn this stuff?
Well, I'll be honest with you. 3D is complicated.
Yes,
it is complicated. But I would say relatively easy. How's that? There are things you can do in 3D, the basics, that are quite easy to pick up. You want to create film quality special effects. You want to do articulated character animation. Yeah, it's going to take you some time, probably a couple of years to really get to the skill level where you can do that on your own. But motion graphics, utilizing an Illustrator file, extruding it, animating it, bringing it into After Effects, doing what you want to do with that. Especially if you have experience with After Effects, the transition to Cinema 4D is actually quite easy. Well,
let's get back to the learning question.
Sure.
Do you help people figure out how the software works?
God, you feed me so well. Sure. We created a site called Cineversity, cineversity.com, where we put up video tutorials, we add plugins, we add presets, any kind of utilities that will help people work. But mainly it's there for tutorials to get started. We have anything from getting started tutorials to character rigging tutorials to breaking down projects, anything just to help people get the job done.
Are you finding, because we're slowly moving over into this hiring question, but are you finding that most of your customers are repeat customers upgrading, or are most of your customers coming in new?
I think it's about half and half. Like everybody else, we've gone to an annual licensing model where people try to stay updated, and by having that annual licensing model, they can, Cineversity's included and anything else that we might offer. It's kind of half and half. I think most of the people who are working want to maintain to have the latest version, so they're getting the latest and greatest and the newest features. And we're getting a lot of new customers through our relationship with Adobe and just from knowledge in the market.
What's in the light version of 4D?
Light version is actually quite powerful. That comes with
medium version.
It's not. It's kind of a combination of our lowest version called Prime, but it also has some functionality that is only available in broadcast and studio. See, in the motion graphics,
those are the 3 levels of the program.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, we actually have 4 levels. We have Prime,
which is the starting
package. We have Broadcast, which is focused on broadcast graphics. We have the Visualize product, which is really geared towards architects and engineering people doing visualization. And then we have the Studio bundle, which has everything. Now, there's a tool in our program called MoGraph, specifically for motion graphics. And we gave a couple of features in there for the light version because we want to give people kind of a little introduction, a little tickle with those tools so that they can start playing with those things. So it's sort of in between the Prime and the Broadcast in that it doesn't have all the functionality of Broadcast, but we give a few of the motion graphics tools away.
You've been with Maxon for what, 10 years?
18.
Are you serious?
Yeah, when you said I had a decade, I actually probably have 25 years of experience in this industry.
Update your bio once in a while, it would be helpful.
That's Vicky's fault, Vicky.
But how have you noticed the customers changing over time?
Wow, good and bad. Good and bad. Because the tools have become so sophisticated, a lot of people who are coming into it for the first time expect that the tool is going to do most of the work for you. And bottom line, any of these digital art tools are still art tools, meaning you have to have an artistic eye, you have to be an artist to a certain point.
It's a paintbrush that doesn't help you to paint.
It's a very elaborate paintbrush. It doesn't do the painting for you. Now, it does a lot of things for you that a paintbrush can't do, but you really, having that combination of technological knowledge and artistic skill is really the way you master these tools.
So what you're seeing is the customers have evolved from being pure artists to being technologists or being less sophisticated. What I'm trying to figure out is are you seeing, for instance, originally everybody was motion graphics creating it for broadcast, or everybody was an architect creating, or has the pool expanded? Have you seen a trend that you're paying attention to?
I think it's less industry focused, like you're saying. What we see is more sophisticated people that with greater knowledge. I mean, like the next generation coming up, they're exposed to tools so much earlier, so they're much more knowledgeable. But there's an anticipation that the art part will take care of itself. So sometimes you get people that are more technician than artist. Now, you also get that because they think that the tool's going to do more for it, so they expect more from the tool. So you have to educate them on the artistic aspects of it, that you can't give that part of it up. You can't expect that the tool's going to do all that for you.
So now we've got all these people who are using this tool. Mm-hmm. We've got a larger and larger customer base for you, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. People need to get a job. Yep. And the last few years have not been good years for getting work in the visual effects industry.
Well, that's visual effects, not motion graphics.
What is the difference in your mind?
Well, visual effects, you're talking about film studios and people competing for, shots in a film. I'm talking about broadcast graphics, motion graphics. Our industry's booming and has been booming because if I'm to go back, I'll go back a little bit and say when you and I were growing up, there were 3 TV stations, okay? Then they added a couple other, maybe a couple of local channels, right? Then cable came along and there were a few dozen channels. Then there were a few hundred. The service I have now, I've got about 3,000 channels, okay? Now, there are 3,000 channels that need station IDs, lower thirds, bumpers, interstitials, all that. Now, turn the internet into a broadcast medium.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And now you're talking millions of TV stations. That's what I'm talking about the jobs are. And when you started out with, now I have all these customers and they're looking for jobs, it's actually more that I've got all these studios customers who are looking for artists. And back to the conversation about people expecting the tool to do some of the art for you, what we find is just like you would teach a painting class, if you had 25 students in the class, maybe 2 of them would be good artists in the beginning, and maybe a couple of others would develop over time, and the rest of them are taking an art class and maybe don't ever get it. It's the same thing with 3D. In a class of 25 students, you'll probably notice 1 or 2 of them that just get it right off the bat, and maybe 3, 4, or 5 that over time develop into decent artists. And the rest of them, it may be too complicated. They may be great technicians and may be useful in the industry, but not great artists. There's always work for people, but it's getting more and more sophisticated.
Well, I got an email today from a guy that was calling to say, how do I find work? I mean, clearly, who you know and who knows you is important. But is there a job list or a job posting that people can go to? How do you find the gigs that are out there? And more importantly, for studios that want to find an artist, how do they track them down?
That's a great question. And we've pondered the idea of establishing something like that, or a place where people can do that. And I think there are other groups of people, other businesses trying to be headhunters for design houses or that type of thing. It really is the Wild West to a certain point. People are going on forums, they're creating their own work and creating portfolios online, trying to get the attention of other people. I think there's a lot of internships going on. A lot of the schools now are trying to connect with studios and set up internships where they give students a chance to get in there and do a little work. But there really isn't a tried and true place to go look for a job or connect artists at this time.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time thinking about it. We own a couple of websites which could easily be converted to a job board. And it takes a lot of work to maintain a job board. And then how do you charge for it, and who pays for it? And how do you guarantee that the person, as you know, what's the saying on the internet? Nobody knows you're a dog. So we're still thinking about it, but we haven't decided to go ahead. And so it's a hard question to answer.
Absolutely, we've been in the same position. It comes up occasionally as is that a project we want to take on? And actually, in honesty, Cineversity, the site we've created for creating tutorials to teach, it's not a money making proposition. It's a service that we provide to our customers so they can become better artists, want to upgrade, et cetera. So we're paying for that out of our own pocket. So how do you make money doing that? It would be a great service to provide, but I'm with you across the board. I sell software for a living. I don't develop websites like that.
If you were to advise somebody that's in college right now, or a graduate from college, and they've got graphics design skills and they've got good technical skills, and they want to learn Cinema 4D, which is a wonderful package, where's the market right now? Where are they likely to be employed? Is it broadcast motion graphics? Is it architecture? Who looks like they're doing the hiring?
Well, it's across the board, but motion graphics is the market that's really, there's a lot of jobs out there. If you do search for After Effects Cinema 4D jobs, you will find people putting up listings in different places where, Monster, all the different places where there is hiring. You will see a lot of jobs for After Effects and Cinema 4D users. In terms of learning it, there are so many free resources out there. Cineversity that we do. There's Grayscale Gorilla, Nick Campbell's site. There's lynda.com. There are so many resources. You can even search YouTube and Vimeo and find dozens of great tutorials to get started. To learn, it's like anything else. Give yourself a project. Find a commercial that you like, and duplicate it. See, I can do that. Or the simplest things, and start from there. Once you start building a portfolio, that's what's going to get you hired. Being able to show people that you can accomplish something, do great work.
What's your take on devices like Oculus Rift?
Well, I think right now virtual reality is a big buzzword, and I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity in that. I think that's a little further down the road. If I'm gonna put myself out on a limb, I would say that probably the bigger opportunity is going to be content creation for augmented reality.
Now, what's the difference?
Well, for instance, augmented reality might be an application on my phone where I can choose a couch from IKEA and put it in my room like this and see what it's going to look like in my room, or I can put the carpeting there and see what that's going to be looking like, as opposed to a immersive environment, for which I think is going to be more probably at first for gaming, because that's where the interest and the money is.
So the holodeck is still a ways away?
I think so. But augmented reality has so many applications, like traveling. You could get your walking tour on your phone and walk around and look up, and you can have signs, or there are applications already where people can leave notes for each other in certain places, and they show up through augmented reality. They shine it on a brick wall, and oh, Bob was here, he left a message for me. They can be private, public.
Well, do you think, I was just reflecting, 2 years ago, the big buzzword was 3D, stereoscopic 3D.
Sure.
And then last year, the big buzzword was 4K. And we're going to be talking more about that with Sean in the next section.
Sure.
Now, maybe virtual reality. Is that likely to have legs, or is it something that people are just talking about to give themselves something to talk about?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's you know, everybody wants something to talk about. They want that buzzword. It makes it more interesting to go to the trade shows, and for those companies, they get that kind of buzz. I think virtual reality is going to take some time, because look at how much work it takes just to create the content for, you know, a film that's static. It's not going to change. Virtual reality demands that, you know, there's content to your actions, you know, that it can change depending on which way you look, what you're doing, how you're reacting to your environment. That's a lot of content, and that's going to take a lot of time. And they haven't even really mastered it to a point where it's, you know, it's that, you know, I mean, Oculus Rift is pretty cool, but but I still think it's got a long ways to go beforehand. Whereas augmented reality wouldn't be that hard to create a model of a couch and be able to swap out the fabrics, and then create something where you can peg an area and see what that couch is going to look like in your house. I think that's something that is a little bit more reachable sooner.
Let's switch this for just a second. We've talked about having artists get jobs and where to look. What do producers need to know about this technology that they don't? In other words, what tips do you need to give them to help them make the most of it?
Number one, it's the artist. It's the artist. It's not the tool. A lot of producers and a lot of executives get caught up on the tool that's getting used. They get, oh, I've heard this tool's really great. Doesn't matter. It's the artist who's wielding that tool. Even if it's, you know, I think the most important thing would be a visual effects supervisor who's, you know, got a track record. You see their work and you like what their work looks like. It really comes down to the artist. I actually have a friend in the industry. We had this conversation, and he was enamored with different studios and different people. And I said, yeah, but if their top artist left, they're not that studio anymore. It's a different studio.
So what are you planning for NAB this year?
Oh, we've got a great lineup.
Oh,
I think I have about 20 different great artists. I've got people who've worked on motion graphics for MTV, South Park, ESPN, ABC, NBC, pretty much name the broadcast channel. We got somebody represented. I've got artists coming in to show medical animation. I've got
when you say coming in the show, what's happening?
Well, thank you. At the booth at Maxon at NEB, we set up a theater presentation, so the people there can come in, and every hour we have an artist comes in and does a nice little presentation and shows off how they did it, you know, what kind of work they're doing, et cetera. And we also broadcast that live. So if you don't come to NAB, you can kind of virtually come to NAB through our booth.
Very cool.
So if you go to c4dlive.com, people can go on there and watch our presentations live. Now, if you want to see what those presentations are like, you can go to Cineversity, because what we do is we archive those each year. So right now they could go watch last year's NAB and SIGGRAPH presentations, and then they can watch them live or afterwards.
And what website can people go to learn more about Cinema 4D?
Maxon.net.
That's all one word, MAXON.net. And Paul Babb is the CEO of Maxon US. And Paul, as always, a delight visiting. Thanks for joining us.
Are we done already?
We are done. See you soon.
Thanks, Larry.